Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. 5 issues, I nearly did 10. There probably is 10 times 10, 100 issues that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to solve at Manchester United. But 5 big issues he must sell. You can't keep flip-flopping like a dead fish. You're either Ole in, Ole out, but the reality is, the point is, he's still in place. And while he's in place and he's still got air in his Manchester United managerial lungs, then he needs to keep breathing and there is things he can do to make things better. We'll also be talking about some topical stuff. Koulibaly, Emre Can, nonsense I think, but we'll talk about that. But the first thing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to do at Manchester United is take bloody control. Know his worth, know his power and start flexing his muscles. This perception of being a Glazer's puppet, it needs to stop. He is in power. He is losing power with the fans, but he is a fan favourite. He is a legend of this football club. And every minute he keeps going on about, we had a good summer. I let Lukaku go purposely and didn't bring anybody in. I'm happy with the team that I've got. It's all a load of nonsense, Ollie. It's either nonsense or you're incompetent. And I don't think you're incompetent. I think it's nonsense. I think you are covering for those people upstairs because they are your employers. But this football club's past that now. If this football club is going to improve, it needs brave people to be vocal. And I think it needs Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be vocal. Not to come out tomorrow and say, Woodward out, Glazers out, green and gold scarf, dancing around Old Trafford. You can do that. You can get all the way around. Imagine that, starting a conga. Who's with me? I'm not expecting that. But what I am expecting, not as far as what Mourinho did a year ago, but the reality with Ole is, he's going to go out with a whimper. He came in this job, exciting, exuberant, 4-3-3, Ole's at the wheel, United way, I'm a fan, we're going to do it this way, that way. Really exciting, got the job and then became this Poundland Mourinho with his defensive tactics, etc, etc. And he's going to go out with a whimper because every press conference it's like, I'm happy with the lads, we're positive, that's that and the other. He's going to go out, he's going to be sacked, the nicest manager we've ever had. No, don't do that. Don't destroy your legacy as a Manchester United manager by being nice to those people upstairs. You've made your job ridiculously hard. There is a way that Ole can play this. There is a way he can get the fans back on side whilst pointing the blame firmly upstairs. And that is to be a little bit more subtle. Take control. They need you more than you need them. They will cut you dry. Just ask Moyes, ask Van Gaal, ask Mourinho. They will cut you dry. They will put you out in the farm and everyone will be there to laugh at you. Don't let that happen. Take some control. You're close to the exit door. I really do think Solskjaer's close to the exit door. I think he can move away from that and we'll be talking about that how. But he needs to value himself. He needs to understand his worth and he needs to understand that he has a very, very big play in how Manchester United improve. Because I tell you what, if you lose your job because you were vocal about what's going on, then you walk out a hero. If you lose your job as a Glazer puppet, then you go out as, the weak manager that wasn't good enough. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to seriously think about these next few weeks because his future is in the hands of those players next to me. His future is in their hands. If they turn up or they're not good enough, you're gone. You're absolutely gone. But your legacy is in your hands. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, most important of all of these 5 issues, he needs to take some control. He needs to be a little bit of assertive. We need some positive action. And what I would say from that is, when he's given his press conferences, I would not be afraid to say, look, we didn't have the summer that we wanted. We got the defenders we wanted, but we needed to strengthen the midfield. We lost people like Ander last season. And, we know that midfield, the boys are doing a great job, but it's not as strong as we want it to be. We need more depth in the midfield. And I would say the same about the attack, because straight away it acknowledges the problem that we know, and it also puts a light to the clever people that we didn't have the summer we wanted. Oh yeah, we know this. Good one, Ole, but we're not getting the pat on Ole's back. We're not getting that because he keeps sticking up for them upstairs. I'll be your shield. And that needs to stop because it's actually weakening Ole's position with the fans because we know this football club is being run badly. We know there is incompetence in recruitment and contract renewals. He needs to be more on the fence with that. Don't align yourself with the board and the Glazers. Align yourself somewhere in the middle. You've got to please your board, but you've got to please your biggest customer, and that's the fans. And at the moment, Ole doesn't understand that actually, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? If in the press conference for Liverpool he said, look, the midfield isn't what I wanted it to be. The attack's not what I wanted it to be. It's going to take time, but at the moment, it's just not. We haven't got the depth we needed. We needed to invest more in the summer. We didn't get the players we needed, right? What are the board going to say? Oh, we wish you didn't say that. Oh, well, you're going to sack me then? because there's a lot more to come out if you do. He's got to take control. He can be the person that gets this club back on track. I know that sounds stupid, but we need it. You know, the one thing I liked about Mourinho was when he got the sack was that in them last few months he didn't care a shit. He was honest, wasn't he? I wanted these players, I didn't get them. We would listen if Ollie said it. So that's the first thing I would do. The second, and just talking about players as well, just a little bit of topical stuff. There is talk that Manchester United may be in for Koulibaly. I mean, this talk belongs in the bin. Why would we be in for Koulibaly? We've got Twan Sebi, Harry Maguire, Lindelof. Total nonsense. Why would we spend 90 million on Koulibaly? He will go to Manchester City. And what about this one then? Emre Can and Mandzukic for Pogba with a bit of money. Forget about it. That's B-Tech, that is. That's rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. We don't want that. Emre Can is a B-Tech Pogba. He's, nothing wrong with him, but Pogba is, very, very good. And Emre Can, he's also a Liverpool reject. And Mandzukic, the Croatian Peter Crouch, who's 34 in May. Forget about that. So I don't want that to happen. It would be ridiculously naive. And the funny thing is, you've got the sporting director of, I think he's at Lille now. Very good record. Campos, I think his name is. Is it Ivan Campos? Basically begging for the Manchester United job. A very, very competent sporting director basically begging for the Manchester United job, or saying he'd be open to it. I wouldn't say begging, that's a little bit harsh. He's there. He wants the job. Go and get him. Will we do it? Will we heck? And then also, mainstream media, it's like a bloody echo, isn't it? Jermaine Genius has come out and said that, you know what, people, I'm going to devastate you with this great foresight and never been said opinion before. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Jermaine Genius says, blah, 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 boom. This is what you get hundreds of thousands of pounds a year for, Jermaine. You know what he said? Pep Guardiola would fail at Manchester United. Wow, we've not spoken about that for the last year. The mainstream media, they're laughable. I'm sure they're watching all the fan channels and write them down and go, oh, I've got access to the mainstream media, I'll put that out there. Of course Pep Guardiola wouldn't bloody succeed at Manchester United. Mainstream media leads to bloody wake up to this. We've been talking about it for bloody months. Anyway, he wouldn't succeed at Manchester United, in case anyone's never heard me say it before. I've said it 100 times. He wouldn't succeed because he would need to absolutely remove every player in that squad to play his style of football, and he would need about £600 million to buy the players that could. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. So he'd have to try and play tiki-taka football with what we've got, and he would fail. The second thing that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to do, other than get a voice and be strong, is Paul Pogba needs to be freed. Now, if you look at this team on the left, you've probably been looking at that phrase just going, when's Mark going to talk about it? Well, I'm going to talk about it now, because this is what this is. This is I don't know whether he should play against Liverpool, but this is the vision that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, in my opinion, should be showing fans now. And it's great because it's got loads of flaws in it, but it's also got potential in it. And it frees the most important person there, Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba should not be playing as a centre defensive midfielder in a midfield two. He should be playing as a box-to-box midfielder with licence to get into the final third, because he's our most creative midfielder. It's not rocket science. So that team on the left there, that is the team that I would play if I was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It would be the 4-3-3 that he was very successful with, and then it's how you construct that team. Because obviously De Gea and that back four take care of itself, but when you go into the midfield, I can almost hear you screaming, what have you got Pereira in there? McTominay should be box to box. Look, the whole point here is you can't moan about the midfield. You cannot moan about the midfield, because we spoke about this the day of the transfer window closed. That midfield is shit. It's rubbish. It's the mint with a hole. It's Polo FC. So we've got to accept that whatever midfield you put together, it's going to be the weakest part of the team, because we should have bought two and we bought none. So that's how I would do the midfield, because what I wanted to replicate is the midfield three that he had back in January that was really good. The Matic, Herrera, Pogba three. With the holding Matic, the box-to-box Herrera, and the Pogba box-to-box with more licence to get forward. So obviously Pogba goes into the role that he did in January. Very easy for him to do that, and he could still be effective. In the Matic position, Matic is so rubbish, I wouldn't even put Matic in it. I would put McTominay there, because he's more mobile, and I think he can do everything that McTominay does, and he's quicker. So I would put McTominay there. Yeah, you're going to get games where he's not so good, like Newcastle and Wolves, but you'll get games where he is good, like Arsenal. So I would put McTominay there over Matic. The box-to-box position, trying to find a Herrera, very, very difficult. And I was like, would you trust Fred with that? Well, maybe not. But one player I think could do that role until we bring anybody better in is Pereira. Pereira's wasted on the right wing, but he does like a tackle. He is very energetic and he can actually pass. So I actually think we're missing a trick by not trying Pereira in the Herrera role. So that's what I would do, but you might think something different. And then the front three, it's got to be Martial down the middle. Dan James is better off the left. Don't play two people out of position, because what Ollie would probably do is put Rashford on the left and James on the right. And then you've got two players playing out of position. Put James on the left in position and put Rashford on the right out of position, but you've only got one out of position. And that would be my team. You know, show us a vision, release Pogba. Release Pogba from the shackles of the centre defensive midfield position and get him further forward. And I guarantee we've got a good back five. I don't know why we have to protect it with two CDMs. We've got a good back five. You've got Pereira who will run and run. You've got McTominay who will sit. And you've got Pogba who's got licence to get forward with that front three. Overnight, we'll become a better team. So release Pogba and release that system, which feeds into point 3. Show us the vision. Show us the future. And that team would show us the future. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer desperately now, and remember, this is 5 things Ole must change to keep his job, in my opinion. And you might have different. Obviously, I've already said he needs to show a voice because he has great power and he needs to stop taking the blame and looking upstairs and feeding that out into the media. The second thing, release Pogba. We need Pogba further up the pitch. He's our best player. Our season, right at the start, I said Pogba is key to this season. He's not key to anything if he's stood there with a finger up his arse playing in CDM. He needs to be free. He needs to be running. And then that feeds into point 3. Show us the vision. For God's sake, show us the vision, Ollie, because you're going to lose your job. So show us the vision. Show us what you're going to do. Show us what your Manchester United was going to do in the first 3 months before you got given the job. Go back to it, play it, excite us. And you know what? If you play that team on the left and you go to Norwich and you draw 3-3, and if you go to Bournemouth and you lose 3-2, I don't think people would say Ollie out, because they would go, he's changed the system back to what he was doing before. He's woefully exposed because that midfield's not good enough. But if he could get a Fernandes, if he could get a Thomas Partey or an Ndidi, that midfield would be a lot stronger and that system would work. That's what he needs to do. Show us the vision. Show us the vision. Show us the future. And then we'll move on from the horrible situation we're in at the moment. Point 4. What was point 4? I'm sort of losing my own focus here. Point 3. Point 4. Well, this was actually point 3. But yeah, point 3 is focus on your future, focus on your vision, and show it to the fans. It's like a presentation. If I could say what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's current situation is, it's a little bit like, you know, you've got a PowerPoint presentation. You've got a room full of people who really are unsure about your product. He's got to sell it. He's got to stand up in front of everybody now with his old clicker and show us a presentation that we can get behind, because at the moment we're not interested. He's got to show us, he's got to show the world. That's what he's got to do. The fourth thing he's got to do, and you'll notice from my team they're nowhere near it, drop Lingard, drop Mata, really try to move them out of the club. There's no future with Mata, and I don't really think there's a future with Jesse Lingard. This is a player who has, I've always said this, he's world class off the pitch. He's bottom drawer off it. You know, he's not good. He's not a good footballer. He's not. He might be an impact last 20 minutes sub. But I'm not even convinced about that. And I certainly don't think you should be paying over 100 grand a week for it. I mean, this talk, we're going to give this this man, a new contract. I mean, I think this is where Manchester United are going wrong. You look at that team and we reward crap. We really do. Like, bold. I always have said this. You've got to be ruthless and aggressive to make improvements at this club. We aren't being ruthless and we're not being aggressive. And ruthlessness is actually saying to somebody, I know you've come up through the youth setup, but guess what, Jesse? You're not the first youth product to be kicked out of the club. In fact, you're probably in the 1% who don't get kicked out of the club. You've had your chance, you've failed, you've made a lot of money out of this club and the status it's afforded you. Off you go to Everton and enjoy the rest of your career. That needs to happen. This kid, I keep calling him a kid because we get sold that he's still bloody 19. He's 27 this year. He's got to go. He's got to go, or he's got to be a firm bench player. He cannot be part of the first team. He's been played as a number 10 this season when Ollie most needed him, and he's had less touches than people who've been going off at injured at half time. No dribbles. He offers nothing. He's had too many chances. He needs to be taken out of the first team. With Juan Mata taken out of the first team, there's no future with him. It was ridiculously silly to give him a new contract, because anybody with eyes who knows football knows that he was finished a year ago. All right, he writes a good blog. All right, he's a top bloke. All right, he's great to have around the training room. But the reality is he good enough on the pitch? No, he isn't. And Marcus Rashford needs to be taken off free kicks. And Ashley Young needs to be told to stop doing the lofted up corner. I know they're little nitpickers, but they are things I see time and time again when we're doing the watch along, when you're on social media and United are playing. Fans are fed up to the back teeth of seeing Marcus Rashford on free kicks and Ashley Young whacking these silly lofted Wimbledon bloody type corners into the box. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. We need to bring some ruthlessness into this team. Get rid of the nicknames and start being ruthless. I think there's a running theme here. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to start being ruthless. I know he says, I'm the guy who sees positivity and a smile in everything, and that's great. But actually, sometimes in life, you need to take the smile off and be a bit of a BASTARD. You do. You need to. And this team needs it more than ever. Because these players, Ollie, you can believe it or what you're not. You can think, oh, fans don't know what they're on about. Oh, it's just social media people hiding behind their keyboards. Everyone I meet face to face is really nice. Remember, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said all this over the last few weeks. You forget the stuff he said about the fans over the last few weeks. He needs to start listening to them. Because the only people who actually will be here in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, are fans of this club. So you need to start listening to them, because this is a life choice. This is the club that we're going to support for the rest of our lives, and we want it to be successful. We don't moan because we think, I feel like moaning today. We're moaning because we've had 6 years of this. We've had a lot of this nonsense with these players, and you should listen. You should listen, because all these people that you give pet nicknames to, these players, they are letting you down. You know, Rashi, Lingy, Youngie, Chungy. That's what we used to call chewing gum when I was a kid. Not Chungy, Chongy, Jonesy. You know, they're all letting you down in one way or another. But that brings me on to my next point. With regards to the youth, it's funny because we spoke about this on the last international break. You've got to play the youth. It's funny how even as fans, the more evidence you get, the more you realise. And I think a lot of us wanted the youth to play. My opinion, and I don't know what yours is now, but my honest opinion is that youth is not ready to be thrown in and save our club. And to be honest with you, it was probably very naive to think that. They are young players. You know, Mason Greenwood's 18 just. These are teenagers, a lot of them. And, you know, I saw somebody the other day say, let's play James Garner in the holding midfield role. And I'm like, what? You know, he might be the best holding midfielder in the world in 2 or 3 years, but at the moment you can't just chuck him in when he's not even really had a full debut. What's abundantly clear with the youth for me, and I'd like to know what you lot think in the comments, is that they're not ready, because they're not going to be ready, because that's the way the world works. There's very few players that you chuck in and start playing from the start every game, you know, and they solve your problems. The biggest thing is what I said probably 4 or 5 months ago, is that people go on about, oh, can this set of youth players be the class of 92? Well, they'll never be that, because they're not good enough for a start, because who would be? But also, they haven't got those leaders like Roy Keane, Schmeichel, Cantona, Bruce to nurture them. They haven't got a successful team to help them. It's a team that's, you know, has no leaders, full of spineless Pampers FC bottlers. So those young players, not only are they naturally nervous, which is a good thing because they're trying to forge a career, they haven't actually got people who can put an arm around them and help them in that team. So, you know, it's like chucking somebody in the deep end who can't swim, isn't it? You know, let's hope they can swim without putting any armbands on them or an instructor there to help them how to do it. And we don't have armbands because everyone's sinking in the first team anyway. And we certainly don't have an instructor to tell them how to do it because they don't know how to do it themselves in the first team. So I think with the youth, we've got to be patient with that. It's got to be more sporadic. And I think Ollie, I would applaud him on this because I think he's tried to do this. And obviously he trains these players every day, so he knows. But when I look at Gomez, when I look at Chong, when I look at Greenwood, I see 3 players that I believe in all 3 of them. But I just think at the moment, let's start Gomez in the number 10. Let's start Greenwood down the middle. I think that we will destroy them and destroy ourselves by doing it. I think that they are players that are going to need a Europa League start, a Carabao Cup start, half an hour here and there. They're not ready for now. And that's why that team on the left doesn't have any of them in it. Because I think that team, as I know and as I look at it, that's the team I would be playing between now and January and now and next summer. Because I think that's the best vision Ollie can sell. Is it a good vision? Of course it's not. That midfield's not great. That front three has weaknesses, but it's the best vision he can show. And I think the most important thing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to do, and it goes back to point one and knowing the power he has, not being weak and cowardly about the situation, actually realising you're in a strong position. People can't stand the board. People can't stand Woodward. People know we need a director of football. People are going in on Ollie because of his tactical choices. Ollie needs to play a better game. Ollie needs to do the things that the fans want so that he comes onto our side and they become the enemy who are not doing the things that need to be done for the club. And Ollie needs to play into that. So if he picks a team like that on the left, all he's going to get is sympathy. Well, he's picking the best team he can with what he's got. Look at that midfield, it's not good enough. Of course that team's not going to finish in the top four. But let's be honest, we're not going to finish in the top four the way we're playing anyway. He needs to build that vision, he needs to show that vision. And with that team, and maybe last 20 minutes you bring Greenwood on, maybe last 20 minutes Chong comes on sometimes, maybe last 20 minutes Gomez comes on. You gradually feed them in, but I think the youth need to be taken away from the pressure. This is imagine what the situation is like for if you're one of those young lads, right? This is your breakthrough season and it's the worst start the club have ever had in 30 years. You're going to start to self-analyse. You're going to start to see what happened with Chong in that game when everyone on social media was saying he was crap. The fan base is unhappy. The fan base is toxic. Whatever it is, it's not ideal for these young players to be involved in it. They can't just come in. They're not the next Rooney. I don't think they are. I think Greenwood's got potential to be very good, but they're not the next Rooney. They're not going to come in and revolutionise this footballing team. I think they're good players, but I think a lot of their future is about how we develop them. And at the moment, this is not a great development situation for them. So I think it should be more sporadic. And I think that's the team I would go with on the left. I think that's exactly the team that we need to go with. It's not ideal. It isn't ideal. We need to get back to the start of the season where we were moaning about the lack of transfer activity in the midfield and the attack, and we were sympathetic towards Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I remember that vividly. I remember the start of the season. I was angry then. I was like, God, this board have basically ruined this season before it's even started. We can't finish in the top four with that squad. And that was assuming Ole was going to play the way he did at the start when he got the job. He's come into it. He's been defensive. He's been cowardly. And he has then started to put a lot of focus on himself. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's task now, between now and the next international break, is to pick up points, but it's also to take control back, to start getting the fans on side and to start pushing the blame back where it belongs with your employers, Ole. Because if you don't, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thinks keeping Woodward and the Glazers happy and neglecting what the fans want is going to keep him in a job, it will not keep you in a job. It won't. They will tell you you're safe, but your results will continue to get worse, and then the external pressure will force you out. There are a lot of United fans that are Ollie out, whether you agree with that or not. They are. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thinking, well, as long as I keep Ed happy, I'm safe. You're not, Ollie. You're not. You're not. You're in trouble when your only ally is the board of Manchester United. When you lose the fans, you need to get them back, or you're gone. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to get them back. And that's my 5-point plan as to how he does it. Take control, be more aggressive, be more vocal in relation to what's going on at the club and putting the blame where it belongs. And you can do that very subtly, but at the moment he is coming across as a bit of a puppet. Second thing, free Paul Pogba. Get that system back. Get Pogba back. Build a team around that system. Yes, your midfield's going to be weak, but we knew that anyway. That's not necessarily your fault. They didn't replace Ander Herrera. Point 3, show us the vision. Show us the vision before you get sacked. Don't go out with a whimper. Show us the vision. Show us that strategy that you have in place with a team like that. Point 4, get rid of Lingard and Mata out the starting team. I would even look at getting rid of them out of the club. I don't see a future for either of them. Get Rashford off free kicks. Get Ashley Young off the floating corner cross. Start to build a team. Get rid of the obvious little tactical flaws that you are showing. Rashford on a free kick is like letting your son take a free kick in a pub team. It's so biasly stupid. It's become a joke. Manchester United should never be a joke. And point 5, the youth needs to be sporadic now. The youth, we've tried a little bit. They're not ready, and it's not a situation to be throwing them into anyway. Go with a team like that. Use the youth off the bench here and there. We've got to start building a vision before we build a dynasty, and that's what I think about it. Anyway, please do smash a like on the video. I must just say the podcast is out. The podcast is out. The links are in the video description for that. Very good podcast with me and Flex today. Really going in on, well, what I would say is, if you want to know why you can never compare Sir Alex Ferguson 30 years ago to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now. You never will have thought of this theory. Watch it. The links are in the video description. It's right at the start of the podcast. Listen to it, and you will never, ever, ever again entertain these people who say, well, you've got to give Ollie time because it's very similar to what happened with Sir Alex Ferguson. It will just destroy that argument forever in the podcast. Give it a listen. Links in the video description. Please smash a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. Remember, there's no 8 o'clock show tonight. It's back tomorrow. I'm playing a match for the United stand tonight. That's why. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you give the podcast a listen.